All right, here we are live on the Bear Fruit Show with our special guest, Don Hobbs. Welcome to the show, Don.
Kyle, I can't believe here we are finally. I'm so excited to be here with you.
Yeah, this is
We got to
amazing,
bear
guys.
fruit, man. We got to bear
Yeah,
fruit.
bear fruit. So bear fruit, I had a mentor once tell me, go find somebody with fruit on the tree and learn from them and let their ceiling be your floor. And so that's what I've done in every aspect of my life. And, Don has always been somebody that stood out to me as a person who's done exactly that. And so I'm excited to hear his story today, excited to kind of, break down some stuff and learn from him. And he's just an amazing, you're founder of Expert Partner, Expert Mentor. That's who you are. And I'm excited to have you on the show, Don.
Thanks, buddy. Well, I'm glad to be here. It is super cool what you're building, and I love your podcast and the heart behind it, and what you're putting in the world. I think right now is really needed and super important.
Yeah. Thank you, Don. I appreciate that. Well, let's kind of dive in and tell me a little bit about yourself. We were talking a little bit, I know you're in Puerto Rico now and you're doing some great stuff, but so give me a little flash of what you're doing now, and then we'll dive into what kind of how you got there.
Yeah, so we've got a number of things we do. Expert Partners kind of carries most of it, and in there we've got coaching and trainings and events and other coaches and cool stuff. And then we've got a technology platform, one video platform, and that you recognize, and then another one that is a CRM platform that Allison's bringing to market right now. That's pretty freaking cool. So we're excited about that. We also help coaches, a lot of coaches or up and coming coaches, to develop kind of their brand, their bigness. Have them come out of their shells so people can see them, and then they've got great things to say, but they haven't figured out how to say it in a way that's going to be effective or get themselves out there. So we have a 6 and 7 figure coaching, which is kind of really about building out the entire system of somebody's business that way. So a lot of fun stuff we do there. And of course, we've got a big real estate group as well. So we've got a few folks in that.
Nice. Yeah, you're doing some great stuff. I love it.
Yes, we're having a lot of fun, and living in Puerto Rico is not a bad place to have to live.
No,
right?
Not a bad place at all. Yeah,
Always
where in Puerto Rico are you guys exactly?
We're kind of in the southeast. It's the Caribbean side. So you fly into San Juan, and then you drive about 40 miles or about 40 minutes southeast, and we're on the coast, and little gated, guarded bubble community. And we've got a lot of friends here. I'm telling you, you know some of them, but we've got a lot of friends here. And there's a lot of, because of what's gone on in Puerto Rico and the way the government's allowed this to be a tax haven. We've got podcasters and just a lot of creatives, a lot of people building big stuff and thinking big. And so you go to a party, you're not hanging out with the dregs, you're hanging out with like the elite of the world. It's pretty exciting.
Yeah, no, it really is. It's turned into a special place, and a lot of like-minded people, business owners. Not what is it, like 4% in
4% tax.
Yep. And 0% in capital gains. Is that right?
It is.
Yeah.
So we had to bring our corporations down here. We got to bring our corporations down here, and then of course we were able to reform everything here, and so it's pretty cool. So if anybody's interested in that, of course, that's a good conversation to have. But,
that's a great conversation for some of the right people out there. People have a hard time believing that, to be honest. Like I tell them, and they're just like, "What?" So they don't know, which is surprising to me. It's like, hey, if you're gonna have this big exit in your business, you need to get down in Puerto Rico.
It's funny because when we came down here, Kyle, we were one of like 500 applications that were pending for this government act that allows this to all happen, and now there's 12,000 pending. So you can just see that people are going like, "What? Say what? What?" It's a game changer. It's a financial game changer. Yeah,
it is. I mean, especially when you got people paying 30-40% tax and they're making millions of dollars a year. Like that's a big difference.
Right.
So, So tell me, Don, you're telling me before we got started on the show that, that Tony Robbins is like your big brother or a little brother.
Little brother, man.
He's a little guy. And, and then you have, Jim Rohn, who is like a father to you, or was a father to you. And so excited to kind of dive into those conversations. But, before we do, tell me tell me how your journey of how you got to where you're at, and I'll kind of just dive into different questions within as you start to
Yeah,
share. So,
sure. Well, and we can go back to the beginning. It started there, but my probably most of my brand, my personal brand, came from personal branding and marketing in the real estate space. And in the 80s, after I left Rohn's company, um, my business partner and I started a company which actually changed the real estate space pretty dramatically. We taught agents that they were really in business for themselves, and at the time, it was kind of the golden age of real estate, growing out of mom and pop and into franchising. And when I say the golden age, actually, I hadn't thought of the correlation, but it was Century 21 and their gold coats that really changed the game entirely.
yeah,
And
yeah.
so people were coming into companies like that, and we came along and said, it's not about that. Unless I call and ask for Kyle by name, you got nothing. And so we built the branding and concepts and all that stuff. And then one day we actually built the agency, the ad agency. And so we built into the largest training company in the real estate space. We were, I've spoken for almost 2 million realtors in my lifetime. And so it's, some of them are still alive. So it's good news. And then of course we had the chance to impact about 150,000 personal campaigns. And this is not templated stuff. This is like custom. We blew people up. We had the biggest agents in the whole world. So I got to do that for a lot of years. And of course, what set all that up was meeting Jim when I was Jim Rohn, when I was 18. My mom, bought me a ticket to attend the seminar. And I tell the story because it was kind of date night. It was like for a kid 18 years old, it's like Friday night ain't the night you want to hang out at a seminar. So I went to go see this guy, and it was very much where I didn't want to be. And then within 30 minutes, 40 minutes, I'm taking copious notes, and I'm like, oh my gosh, this is the way I want to live. And so he became a big deal in my world. And
what was it when you were 18 in that first seminar that really stood out to you, and you're like, hey, I want to be like that guy?
Yeah, which is exactly what I told him. I went up to the break and told him that. I know it seemed like now it's like, really? You told him that? Yeah, I did.
That's awesome.
I think the biggest thing was, what Jim talked about was the fact that, he was kind of the godfather of all personal development stuff. And he was really about, if it's going to happen, it's going to happen from the inside. It's going to change in you before it changes out there. And for things to change, it has to be created from your end. And I'm not leaving God out, but I'm just saying here in the physical planet, we're the ones who carry out. And so, he talked about massive action. You'll hear phrases today. And if somebody's watching this, listening to this, and they're not aware of who he is, he's very findable on YouTube. So you're going to just find tons of stuff. Yeah. Almost every speaker, when he was dying, and he was died, unfortunately, kind of a long, prolonged death. People, all the speakers, almost anybody could name, came into one of two green rooms to give him one-to-one thanks for, you were the one that changed my life. And it's like, he really was kind of that godfather of all. And I don't mean that in a bad way. He was really the preeminent guy of his time. And then Tony was there, Tony Robbins was there. So I was 18, Tony came along probably 3-4 months later. He was 17. So we had a bunch of kids running around. Yeah. And we had a bunch of others that were, 19, 20. It was like a bunch of young bucks that really were just cranking out. And we loved the idea of being successful. And funny enough, Success Magazine was like our little monthly Bible. It would come in the mail. Yeah. Always, oh my gosh, Success Magazine. Because we didn't have the number of books, and it wasn't the prolific. Now everybody's got a book. It's like, except me. But it's in those days, it was like you had your big favorite people, and so we would get those. But Success Magazine was kind of a big deal. So for me, Jim was all about, you had to dig in and figure out what it was you wanted from life, and goals was a big part of it. Of course, you would expect that, and personal growth and reading. I remember him pushing me to read. I was out of school. I was like, put the last book on the shelf and went, screw that, I'm never reading again.
Reading is something that I always struggled with in high school. I think I read one book in high school, and then as I got through college, and now I love to read, and I will just eat books, right? Like it's very much a thing that has become a part of the reason why I've been able to grow, is because of reading and listening and audios and all of that. So yeah, reading is a key thing for sure, Don.
For sure. And in those days we had a speed reading course that we took. So, you know, it was a lot of fun stuff. We used to compete who could read, you know, Think and Grow Rich the fastest and things like
Yep.
that.
Yeah.
But we just gobbled up books just like you're saying. And I think for that reason, you know, we put ourselves on the catapult to success. And it was a lot of fun. Being around an environment of successful young energy too is pretty cool. And I refer to it as Camelot. We had kind of that perfect moment in time, you know.
Yeah, just the right, you know, young go-getters like yourself and Tony and I'm sure many others. So that's awesome. Right. Just speaking about books, tell me what are some of the top books that you're reading right now or that you've read recently and you're like, that's a good book.
You know, one of them that I'm really pushing hard at this moment is Code of the Extraordinary Mind. And Vishen, and I'm forgetting his last name, but Vishen is the Mind Valley guy. And Mind Valley's become huge, you know, meditation, all that stuff. But it's really not so much a spiritual book as it is just a book about practical living. And he kind of twists everything that not that I ever believed, but he really has a twist on everything. And I think he breaks through barriers with what he talks about. And that's been one of them. Of course, I just had a friend go through the Go Giver, and that's an old school book. But Bob Berg and I are friends for a long, long time. And so when he was reading it, I was like, I need to go back through that. I was reading it going, this is freaking great stuff.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So there's a couple of them that are out there. And then one of them that I'm really liking a lot that I've kind of been revisiting again, especially with the advent of AI and some of that is The Future is Faster Than You Think. And that is by Peter Diamandis. And he's, you know, one of Tony's pals, and he hangs around with all the elite speakers and stuff, but he's kind of a futurist, and he talks about the fact that, you know, technology changing doesn't just change that, it impacts every other part, which opens up every other part. So you see life expanding so fast today, and people talking about how fast time is passing. It's just because everything is exponential in its explosion and expansion. Not that Chat GPT hasn't changed some of that even more so.
Chat GPT is kind of changed a lot of the games. I mean, just for me as a, you know, I wrote like 12 blogs yesterday. It was really easy. It was great. I'm like, wow, this is awesome. So people should be able to boost their SEO pretty quickly.
Yes, sir, for sure. Yeah.
I mean, it really is changing the game. Speaking on that, well, like, I feel like who can, if it's not already done, who can connect AI and real estate, not just like the marketing behind it, but is there something there? I mean, that's $1 billion idea.
Probably more than that, actually, but yes, you're right. You work on that, Kyle. Bring me into it when you got it worked out. I'll be right there to help you.
Okay. I'll be doing that in my sleep. Let my brain solve that problem.
I think you just let Chat GPT figure it out for you. Just ask it. And...
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, so let's go back a little bit to, you know, what are some of the top things, you know, that you really took away from that relationship with Jim?
You know, there was so many things that were about his personality. So he was so, you know, I was at such an impressionable age, you know, at 18. I mean, I wasn't a kid. I wasn't impressionable like a 9-year-old, but I was at that young adult stage, right? And I didn't have a great relationship with my dad. That we healed that many years later. My mom was the one who brought me there, but she was, you know, corporate, you know, employee type mindset. And so, you know, when I started getting into, like, for example, being an independent contractor and in sales, training, stuff, she was like, you need to get a job. There was a lot of insecurity. I didn't have anybody in my world that was really pushing me to be more and successful. They allowed me to. They were very free with, like, you know, we want you to have all the access, but they didn't have the access. And so Rome was kind of that beginning for me. And he was a very kind man. He was very thoughtful, and I mean thoughtful in a kind way, but he was very thoughtful. Like, he journaled, and he'd have just deep stuff. He would just sit and contemplate. He was kind of a Socrates kind of a
Yeah.
character, a
Okay.
Plato, a character. And I really loved being around him. So I loved that I got to hang with him in the early stages, for programs and things like that. But then later, when I became the president of the company, kind of daily interaction.
Yeah.
It was
Yeah.
just amazing to watch his mind work and the way he saw things and the twists that he would take. That was really all about how big life really is. And of course, how much we have to do with what the outcome is, how we're writing the pages of it.
Yeah.
And I think the other thing that really occurs to me as I look back on my time with him was, he pushed me. I remember, so I'm probably 21. We won't give exactly the year, but it's been some years, and I make six figures. And I think it's funny because people, how much do you want to make this year? Six figures. And I'm like, I made six figures back when
Yeah.
it was a lot of money, but I'm just a kid. I was like, I think either 20 or 21. Let's just say so I make six figures. I make 100 plus whatever, $1,000. And I remember everybody was all excited because this young kid is doing so well. And Tony and I were always kind of battling it out, but I won most of the time. He's won since, but he's going to trump me on so many things. But Rohn said, he used to call me Donald. He said, Donald, good on you. Now that you've figured out how to do that, do it in less time. And I never forget that, because it was a congratulations, but now you've figured the system out. How do you do that more often? How do you do it more, more compressed? Compressed. Yeah. And that was for me a big aha, because I really did understand that time was one of the big deciding factors in success, the way we used it.
Yeah. Yep.
And when I would sit in a room of 1,000 people and there was these 3-piece suits around me and these super successful, at least they look like it to me, because, what do I know? I'm 18 and growing up on the, marginally the wrong side of the tracks. And so it seemed like there was something there about how we use time. But when he said, you've got it, now just go do that in less. And you start thinking, how do I do that? I have to eliminate stuff that I shouldn't be doing. And that was probably one of my big life-changing ahas, because from there I was able to catapult. I got, leverage through other systems, and maybe not so much marketing for a while, but marketing came to me later, but through people, a lot of leverage,
systems and processes. And he constantly talks about that, and find your increasing profit activity. 20% of your time makes you 80% of your money. Like, why are you wasting your time on minor things, like all those things? So I think that's key, and I love the idea of like, hey, you made $100,000, now figure out how to do it in half the time, right? You made $1 million, now make it, instead of making it in a year, make it in 2 months, or make it in 6 months. So I love that. That's great.
Whatever it is, it's already, you've done it. That's the thing, right? So now it's a matter of it. Then we think time is the issue, but it's never time. It's the way we compress those activities, those things, whether it's a marketing, funnel, or whether it's an activity, related to our personal life. Just do it more faster and eliminate stuff that distracts. That's life in a nutshell, at least for the success track.
Yeah, no, I agree. That's awesome. That's awesome. So have you applied that to anything recently that where you're like, hey, we built this, team or this program, or, how are we going to?
Yeah, well, kind of. We started our 6 and 7 figure coaching, and we started off, and we didn't know how we wanted to price it. And it's one of those things you go, well, we can really create a massive transformation for somebody, and what's that worth? And so we, you kind of buckle down. You go, it's going to cost. I think we charged $60,000 for something, and then we were like, that was too easy. And then we went, how about $250,000? And you just sort of realize that it's the same. We're going to do the same work. We might as well get more for the same time. And so we're always thinking about that kind of in our pricing structure. Coaching for me, I was never a coach, because we had coaches and I was kind of the head dude. But when we got out of that and I was doing some coaching, and a friend of mine was like, why would you coach for the same rates that other people coach for? It's like, it's ridiculous. You should be at 5X or 10X over. And so it was like, okay, I guess I can do that. And so I, just raise your rates, and boom, people paid it. And it was like, okay, that makes sense.
This works. Yeah, this works. Awesome. That's awesome.
But I think Kyle, the other thing that I would say I learned from him is, it's not about trading dollars for hours or hours for dollars. It's really about the value you bring. And it's not, what people don't realize, they go, well, this occupation has a cap or a ceiling or whatever. In real estate, of course, we hang out in the real estate space a lot. People don't necessarily believe that, but there is the, well, I can see this, but I can't see, 10x that.
Yeah.
But I think for the most part, people think that there's some correlation between time and making money, and there really isn't. It's the value that you bring. And that was one thing that Rohn really pushed, right? It was bringing more value to the marketplace, becoming more valuable, becoming the person who would get paid that amount of money, that people would want to pay you because you're doing something so unique. You're bringing something so different, and they just want to be around you, right? That was probably a biggie. And then I think finally, one thing that Tony Robbins just came and spoke for us, a few months back, and I got him because of our long-term friendship. And he said something about proximity. And what Rohn used to say is you become the 5 people you hang around the most. And I think we forget, it's pretty common for a parent to tell kids, watch out who you hang around with. It's not as common for parents to see that parents have the same problem. It's so true. Common for us to realize that, we get around the people that we're comfortable with. People who like each other generally are like each other. And when we start to elevate ourselves, one of my friends, Chaz Wilson, when I started talking to authors and these people that I looked up to, and, it was like, I'd call them and they would actually take my calls, and I'd ask them to lunch and they would actually go to lunch. And when suddenly they became my social circle, my life had completely changed, because like tennis, playing up, you just rise. Right? You just rise. So I think there's a big thing about Rohn taught me about association, who you hang around with. It was probably a big thing for me at 18, 19, 20. I mean, those were big decisions, big choices I was making.
Yeah. I mean, for anybody listening, that's a big decision for anybody, right? Because they could be 28, 35, 45. And it's like, well, you look around, it's like, well, these people are kind of, they're on that, they've been putting into their 401k for the last 10, 15 years. And they've been, doing this, and they're just kind of steady in life. And I think there's just, which is fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But I think for some people, like, they know that there's more, right? They know that there's more inside of them, and they just maybe don't know how to access it. And I think the whole concept of, this show, like, go learn from somebody who's gone before you, like that just putting yourself in that. And it's not like, and sometimes you do have to pull out the pocketbook and pay 30, 50, 100,000 to do that. But you could also just go buy their book and spend 2-3 hours reading their book, and also allow that to be, one of your mentors. Cause that's what I've done to get started. It's like, man, like, maybe I can't afford that person right now, but I'm going to go read their book, and I'm going to learn that way. Cause I mean, we have access to so much knowledge and wisdom just from YouTube and podcasts and everything.
Never ending.
It doesn't cost you anything. And so, I mean, the excuse just isn't there. So, I love that.
I'll tell you one thing, Kyle, since you said that, and I do agree with you 1000%. I mean, the access anymore. We ran a show on, what's it called? It'll come to me in a second, but the audio platform that came out during COVID, Clubhouse. We ran a show on there for a year and a quarter. And I made the comment then, the access to learning is nonstop anymore. We have access to so much stuff. I mean, you've got speakers who will tell you everything they say in their programs for free in video. But you realize when you go there, you hear it differently and all of that. But I'll tell you one thing. That
is true.
I'll tell you one thing to that point, and that is when people pay, they pay attention. When people pay more, they pay more attention. I remember having coaches that I paid, $4,000 a day for, and I listened to every freaking word. I mean, I'm taking, my journals were just filled with like, don't say that again. I mean, I didn't want to miss anything. I was paying like how much per sentence, and like, there's wisdom here, right? And for a lot of times, I think people just kind of shrug that off. It's like, no big deal. It's a podcast. It's influencing you. It's great.
No, I agree with that. There's been times this year where I've, written $25,000 checks both times, and both times I've been like, you better believe I'm listening. Like, you better believe I'm taking notes. You better, like, I am so there and so intentional with all of those things. And so, and there's something about, getting on a plane and going and meeting with someone. There's something about, pulling out the pocketbook and, or, crypto, right? And this nowadays, but
Exactly.
I mean, there's something about that.
Yeah.
So I agree with you 100% that, yeah, the accessibility is out there, but there's also, you pay attention more, and you pay more attention when you actually do decide to pay. So yeah, that's really good. I like that a lot. So, I'm taking notes as we're talking. This is great.
It's awesome. Well, listen, one more thing about that, because we don't think about it, but taking notes is great. Rohn got me started on journals. I've got literally 40 years worth of journals, and
yep.
you can go back and track everything. For most people, they're scribbling on a sheet of paper. Hey, do you have a piece of paper? Write some notes. And then where's that go? It's folded up and thrown away, whatever. It's like, if you really want to,
it's a journal. It's a journal.
It's a journal. Exactly. So if you really want to collect life, then you can pour it all in. And today, so to some extent, you can do it digitally. It's just not as inspiring. And
I agree.
I think, one thing at that time, we had photographs, like photos, and Rohn used to say, the thing that your family will love the most is not your money. That they'll admire most your library, your journals, and your photographs, because it's going to tell such a story. And today, of course, digitally speaking, I mean, we've got tens of thousands of photos, and it's like we get to document so much. But it's really cool to think that we should just keep a collection of life ideas, because that's where, I mean, if you're just going to stuff or just learning stuff, it's one thing. But if you're really pouring yourself into it, taking notes and then digesting it, how does that apply to me? What do I do with that? What are the lessons I'm learning?
No, that's really good. And that's true 100%. Like, yeah, I've been journaling for last 4 or 5 years, and I've always kind of journaled, but now it's like, I feed my goals. Like, I write down my goals every evening, and I write them every morning. And it's just like, people write their goals in January, and then they just kind of let them drown out or starve. And it's like, your goals need fuel, just like your body, just like your car, like all those things. So yeah, 100%. You need to write down your ideas, all of it. It's so powerful. I think I heard this from Jim on one of the podcasts I was listening to, and I was like, this is a new way to figure out what your house is worth. He's like, hey, you talking about the library and the journals in people's room. And I was like, I could tell you what this house is worth by the books on the shelves. And I don't need to do a CMA. I don't need to do an absorption rate. I'll just tell you, hey, this is a $3 million house, like, based on just the books that are in there, and not necessarily the value of the books, but like, if you look at people's homes who are $2 million, $3 million, $5 million, $100 million homes, like they have books, they have a library.
Yeah, for sure. Common trait.
Yeah. It's a thing. So
just see, I fed back to you, feed your goals. I put it into the chat box for you.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yeah, I see it. There you go. Feed your goals. That's true. You need to.
Love that.
Awesome. So tell me, I know you said you ran you were the president of Jim Rohn's company, and then you went into some branding. Is that right?
Yeah. So we started HOBSS Herder in the golden years of real estate, when it was really coming out of mom and pops and turning into the big business. And we were all about the agent. I've always, because even in the Rohn era, real estate was kind of coming out of its shell. And so my audience was a lot of real estate. And so I got known in that space. That's how I connect the dots all these years. Is it was kind of lucky. It was just the right time for that industry to pop out. And we just saw that, you could teach them time management, you could teach them sales, you could teach them a lot of stuff that had been done by a number of, iconic names. But the reality was, we'd transitioned for the most part in almost every business from a sales type organization into a marketing structure. It was the advent of marketing in the world. And, when you look at, even if we look at basic things, I mean, I go back to when people used to knock at the doors to sell encyclopedias or whatever. It was a sales career. It was a sales job. Well, nobody does that anymore. Nobody's knocking on your door. Avon's not calling, all the things that used to come to the door are not there, because sales is not where it's at. It's really the marketing. How do we attract people? And so we built, all of our systems around how do you attract clients? And, if somebody's watching and they're in real estate, the question really becomes, how do you be somebody's realtor before they actually need one, such that you are the realtor, right? No matter when. I don't have a tax need right this second, but I have a CPA, and I don't have a doc. I got my Achilles all fixed up. I'm good. I don't need a doctor. So, but I have one, right? And we don't have a realtor because no realtors stand out in that way. And then we think it's about our company. And I was always big on, like, it isn't about the company brand. If the company was the reason for the success of the failure of the agent, you wouldn't have successes and failures in every company.
Yep, that's right. 100%.
So it's 100%, my brand, how people see me, how I show up. And today we've got so many cool ways of pushing that out. I mean, social has exploded us. Video has exploded us. Podcasting has exploded us. I mean, there's so many things you can do anymore to build that bigger presence. And as sad as it is to say, visibility is more important than ability. Because we don't find out if you're good or not good, able or not able, until after we picked you. We picked you based on how present are you. Right.
No, I agree 100%. And I've seen that, within my social media, like people, I always thought, like, well, people really reach out, and they do. People reach out and they say, hey, Kyle, we've been following you, been watching you. We want you to sell our house. Hey, Kyle, you just constantly adding value to the marketplace, and you're absolutely right. It's not always the best agent that wins. It's the best marketer. And it's so true. And obviously you want to become the best agent and become the most dominating agent in your area, but you do that through marketing. And so what are some of the things, I know that you have your branding kind of company now. What are some of the things that you're doing now to help people?
Well, and by the way, the training that is there on the screen, the link, I'll take them to a training.
Expert partners. Yep.
Yeah, that video training program it's only 45 minutes, but give people a real good foundation. I think there's things like, having a niche, knowing who you're really going for. The typical realtor is so busy trying to grab at everything, they never get a marketplace that they own. And while you can do average, you can do well if you bust your butt. You'll always have to do that again and again and again, because there is no place where people identify with you as the answer to their specific needs. So having a niche is almost always the first part. I would say, it's coming up with a niche. Who am I going after? What do I stand for? Let's start there. Values, vision, mission, all that stuff. What do I stand for? Who am I? What do I stand for? Then it gets to good. And who do I want to impact? Which is my target market, right? My niche.
Yeah. Your niche. Yep.
And then from there it gets to strategy. And then strategy is really, now that I know my niche, what's the strategies for getting to those people? Not what's the strategy for getting to people, because not everybody's my possible client. What's the strategy for getting to my people, right? And then it comes down to, from there it gets into the tools. And in the tools, there's a couple things. I mean, clearly social has changed the game, video's changed the game. And then of course, within each of those, you've got the platforms themselves, whether it's YouTube or whether it's, going with doing lives in Facebook or reels or shorts, or whether it's hanging at the TikTok group but I mean, those are questions that everybody goes there as the answer. That's not the answer. The answer is having these other things nailed down first.
Agreed.
Right. Yep. And then when you get below the tools, you finally get to the execution, how much, how often, but again, the messaging comes through the target market, how we're going to put it out, what medium is best for me, given my target market. All of that dictates what I'm going to do, as opposed to, I think I should just shoot some video, or I think I should just, show my lunch today on Facebook. I mean, most people have no idea. What they're doing is they're kind of catching something, going, I guess I should do something.
Yeah.
If you really look at marketing, it's pretty scientific. And if you look at the way Russell Brunson has changed the game with the concept of funnel building, I mean, everything's a funnel. I mean,
everything. Yeah, it's always been a funnel. He just gave it a name. Yep.
Yeah. I mean, the sales thing, we got leads coming in, and we got, it's always a funnel. But the way that we can accelerate funnel growth today, because of the way media works, You know, in days of old, we had to run ads in magazines or newspapers. We had to, I mean, we had people that were running billboards, and there still are, of course. We got clients that still do that stuff, billboards and radio commercials and TV commercials, all that stuff. But again, it's so little of what is probable today or what's possible today compared to what is possible at those times. That's where, if you were big, that's where you'd stretch to. Now it's like having a podcast might be the better solution, right? I mean, you got people.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
Exactly.
hard to get much audience in certain places that are, you know, television, other than to say as seen on CNN or as seen on, you know, that's not a bad thing to get. But
Yeah.
I just had a gal that ran, ran 14 billboards for a little season of time, like a quarter. And she does that every year and a half, 2 years. But all the time, people will say, we see your signs all the time. We see your signs all the time. Well, they've lost track of the fact they're not up anymore. But she knows I paid for them for that long, but it was so intense, right? So intense.
Yeah.
So a lot of it is the strategy, but again, start from the top. You got to go with, you know, who am I? What do I stand for? What do I represent?
Purpose,
What's the vision for what I'm building? Then who do I want to do it with? You know, like people always ask, why did you end up in real estate? Because we knew a bunch of people in real estate and because we liked it. But the fact is, in fact, we had people bring their spouses who were in other occupations and went, wow, this is just like our business. They'd have to translate out of realtorese because we had dropped it into the real estate language. But the fact is, marketing's marketing. Marketing works, right?
Agree, 100%. Yeah, and that's so true. I mean, yeah, it's like people could just take pictures of their lunch and whatever, and it's like, no, that's not necessarily going to get you the business that you're looking for. I mean, you may attract some people, but I don't know if that's the people you want to attract.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Hey, I'm going to need to cut here soon. So
I appreciate your time, and I am excited for this to come out, where we'll definitely let you know when it comes live and all that kind of stuff. But appreciate your time, Don. Make sure you guys check out Don's Founder Expert Partners. Click on the link below, take the picture of the QR code, and get his training. You know, this guy's sat next to giants in the branding world and speaking world and, you know, real estate world. So, I mean, Tony Robbins, Jim Rohn, this guy's an amazing man, and glad you're able to join us, Don.
Thanks, buddy. I appreciate the invite. I will come back anytime. If you ever invite me back, I'll be here. Let's put it that way.
Let's do it. We got a lot more to talk about.
Yeah, I'm telling you, I appreciate so much what you're bringing to the world. I love that you're doing what you're doing at the age that you're doing. I think you're going to transform a lot of lives. So I look forward to more of these opportunities.